Thank you for the massive response to the program. Those of you who miss what happens here at 8 o'clock every night can go to Sky News Facebook or Sky News YouTube or to my Facebook page, Alan Jones Australia. It's clear from your responses, though, that the Berejiklian government in New South Wales is in real trouble. In only a few hours after posting my comments of last night, there were over 200,000 views and almost 6,000 comments. It's unbelievable. People are not prepared to cop the arrogance and disdain with which they're being treated. The language of fear spills out of every utterance. Listen to the Premier today of New South Wales. This is unbelievable. Urging people not to visit their aunties or their grandmother or anyone because, listen to this.
But that could be their death sentence.
What? That could be a death sentence. No hope. No hope. Can't breathe hope. Just more lockdowns. As they say in the movies, you ain't heard nothing yet. More on the press conference later. They get worse and worse. More contradictory and more alarmist talk, providing even more proof that those supposedly in charge have completely lost control. 94,532 tests in the last 24 hours. These costs are astronomical. That alone is 18 million. Borrowed money. Tests and vaccinations are allegedly free. They're not. And to the young ones out there, if you're 5, you're going to be paying for this for years to come. And as I've said often, there are many pandemics. The virus may be the least of them. The total removal of freedom and the subjugation of people by governments have reached pandemic proportions. Remember the point made by Chris Whitty, Britain's chief scientific advisor last year? I made this point last night. The great majority of people, even in their 80s, will survive. Even in the most vulnerable, oldest groups, the great majority, he said, of people who catch the virus, and not everyone will, survive it. Yet here we are, 94,532 people tested in 24 hours, queuing up to be tested for a virus that is not lethal, or as Adam Crichton said last night, lethal to only a few. Of course, Berejiklian and co pull out the fear stopper, and it's repeated right across the media. 177 total new cases. Why aren't we told that out of 94,532 tested, 94,355 were negative? That'd be a hopeful observation. Or that worldwide, well over 99% of the cases are mild. As Adam and I said last night, in a world which completely lacks perspective, 4 million people have died in 18 months. We don't know whether it's from or with coronavirus, but 60 million people die every year. Yet here we are, racking up trillions of dollars in debt and trashing freedoms that we've taken for granted and for which people died in war to preserve. Remember the comments last night of the gifted Adam Crichton when he said, quote, future generations will inherit a less free, more embittered society where vaccination status, attitudes to compulsory masking and lockdowns will divide people as much as class and race have before. It's too sad, which brings me to Western Sydney. I've been arguing relentlessly, and I won't stop, in order to give these people some voice, to offer them a sense of compassion, to guarantee them each day some dignity. Who are these people in Western Sydney and southwestern Sydney who are being locked up or locked down? I'll tell you what, they're unassuming, hard-working Australians. As Adam Leto, the Executive Director of the Western Sydney Leadership Dialogue, said today, quote, these are people doing the jobs the rest of us don't want to do. They're in nursing homes caring for our grandparents. Barely anything from Berejiklian, though there are people in her government increasingly concerned with her dictatorial behaviour, uncaring dictatorial behaviour. Yet here are these people being imprisoned who care for our grandparents when they have dementia. The mums and dads who work a second job at Woolies. They're nurses in the emergency ward, pulling 18-hour shifts. They're the couriers, the truck drivers, the construction workers. They're the cleaners. Not a word from Berejiklian, the New South Wales leader, on the role these people play in our lives and why they must be supported. They lack a voice from those elected to represent them. Though Tony Burke offered such a voice last week, the federal member, and they will always have a voice on this program. I asked last night for some compassion and understanding and to give these people dignity and decency and rethink the southwest where there is a coronavirus case problem. But note, the alarmists won't tell you that they're not dying. They may not even be hospitalised. I'll come to that later. Just try Gladys Berejiklian as you completely lose control of managing this issue. Just try to remind everybody of the contribution this region makes to our lives. Because while feeding ourselves is thankfully still an essential task, in a world where the government can't define essential, these are the people who stack our shelves. They're the ones who help make the packaged products. They're the ones who make sure our grandparents are looked after. But what social and economic support do they get? $600, well, it's gone to $750 today, from the leader of a government of a state that can't function without these people. Oh yes, ask them to do the dirty work, take what they give us, but give nothing back. I have to give credit here to the New South Wales Treasurer, Dominic Perrottet. But it remains an enduring mystery to me why the Cabinet of New South Wales, and I know they are alarmed at where Berejiklian is taking us, including them, over the political cliff. It might sound dramatic stuff, but the leadership has to change. There must be a new direction, a new tone and a new strategy. Perrottet is the Deputy Leader. In relation to the comments I've made about giving dignity to these people in lockdown, he is the first person to acknowledge that the $600 does not go to people who are already receiving some form of Commonwealth assistance. I note today those people, if they've lost more than 8 hours work a week, will get $200. Clearly, Scott Morrison and Frydenberg are not happy with Berejiklian blaming them for the vaccine rollout. So they're not forking out money, just pretending to. The $600 has gone to $750. I note that Craig Kelly has issued a press statement today calling on all politicians and senior bureaucrats to have their pay cut to $750 a week for as long as any lockdown continues in their state or territory. And he says, if we're all in this together, as the marketing slogan goes, then he says, we'll all need to be in this together. Yet Berejiklian at the press conference today was trying to tell everybody that, quote, we fought our guts out for those extra payments. People should not feel stressed about their financial position. That's easy to say for someone on a taxpayer-funded salary. For all my viewers, she then said, and people who are writing to me, don't worry, Berejiklian is fighting for you. Don't stress. Listen to this today.
We fought our guts out for these extra payments. I'm glad they're here, and I do say that it will keep us going. People should not feel stressed about their financial position.
Well, Gladys, if that's what you got from the fight, another $150 from some poor coot on 600, and you admit you're on full freight, $7,846 a week you're on, plus chauffeurs, plus allowances, and you fought your guts out to get someone who might be a student or might have a youth allowance an extra $200, Gladys, that's not called fighting, that's called surrendering. They've run rings round you. They're playing a get square. Perrottet has made this point, though. He too is a bit off the pace because the disaster payment is to top up income. What income? These businesses have been shut down. The employer can't afford to pay them. That was the thing about JobKeeper. It kept the nexus between the employer and the employee. To subsidise the worker with $600 means the Berejiklian government expects the employer, whom she shut down, who can't earn a quid, to fork out the rest. From what? There is no income. Perrottet has acknowledged that the disaster payment is not the same as JobKeeper. This is what Berejiklian and co don't understand. Some people are locked down, what I would call the knowledge workers. They can work from home. Their paychecks keep rolling in. The work keeps getting done. Southwest Sydney in particular has hundreds of thousands of people who can't work from home. So what do they get? $750. And Berejiklian is on almost $4,000 a week. And my information from inside the government is we're not being told the truth today either. Berejiklian thinks that when August comes about, the lockdown will go into September. If it does, there has to be another leader, if we can find one. Many of us had hoped that one day, perhaps today, the Premier of New South Wales would be the agent of change. A policy that's not working, change it. Lockdowns don't work. Instead, she continues to be the chronicler of decline. Not only hers, but the battlers on Struggle Street. I think of the kids. We learned today that the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists has said that emergency hospital visits from children with mental health problems have risen from 25 to 40%. Suicidal and super stressed children are flooding hospital emergency wards. Do you think, as a result of what's been announced today, that those visits will increase or decrease? The experts, Berejiklian ignores experts other than those in her little internal cabal, the knowledgeable experts are saying that lockdowns, domestic violence and online learning are fueling COVID anxiety and depression amongst Australian children, some too frightened to breathe outdoors for fear of getting sick. This is the disgraceful consequence of appalling leadership, prospering fear and alarmism, Berejiklian said today, don't visit your aunt or your grandmother or anyone. Listen to this again.
But that could be their death sentence.
That could be a death sentence. This is unconscionable and culpable alarmism. As I speak to you, we have 2,677 cases, which are mild. 99.3% of all cases are mild. 18 in a serious condition in a population of 25.5 million. That is 0.0007% of the population. Get your head around this. And she's telling people are going to die. Reports out of England today of leaked data covering all national health trusts in England show that as of last Thursday, this is staggering, only 44% of patients classed as being hospitalised. You hear this alarmist talk even in Australia, 207 in hospital. Well, here are the figures. Only 44% in England, as of last Thursday, hospitalised with COVID, had tested positive by the time they were admitted. So the majority of cases in hospital were not detected until patients underwent the COVID tests carried out on everyone admitted to hospital for any reason. So 56% of the COVID hospitalisations were in hospital for other health reasons when they tested positive. But in England, as here, there's no distinction between those admitted because of a severe illness later found to be caused by the virus and those in hospital for different reasons who might otherwise never have known they'd picked up the virus. So just repeating, and I've warned you over and over again that governments have chosen fear over truth. In England, the vast majority of hospital COVID cases, quote unquote COVID, have been diagnosed after admission, in some cases weeks later. Professor Carl Hennigan, the director for the Centre for Evidence-Based Medicine at Oxford University, said in an understatement, and I quote, this is 2 days ago, this data should be published on an ongoing basis. When people hear about hospitalisations with COVID, they will assume that COVID is the likely cause. But this data shows something quite different, unquote, as the chairman of the House of Commons Science and Select Committee, Greg Clark, said on Monday night, quote, if hospitalisations from COVID are a key determinant of how concerned we should be and how quickly restrictions should be lifted, it's important that the data is not presented in a way that could lead to the wrong conclusions being drawn, unquote. Well, it won't happen here. You know why? They won't give us all the information. I'm still waiting for one politician in all this alarmist talk to tell us that 99.3% of all active cases in Australia are mild. Well, I'm telling you, and I know I speak for hundreds of thousands, if not millions around the country, we've had a gutful of the alarmism and the hysteria.